World is made possible by grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, this station and other public television stations, the Ford Foundation, and the German Marshall Fund of the United States.
Inside Leningrad, there is still a St. Petersburg. Inside the Soviet Union, there is still a Russia. And in the middle of it all, there is us.
We met the woman who wrote those words less than a week after her release from a Siberian prison camp. We took this 8mm film of her in secret. Meeting Yulia Вознесенская for the first time was a strange experience for us because we felt we knew her so well already. We knew Yulia because we had read her diary. Yulia's diary is a unique record of the life of a dissident poet in Russia. This smuggled film is all we can show of the real Yulia, so in the documentary you're about to see, actors and actresses play the parts of Yulia and her friends, because otherwise their story would remain untold. But everything said and done in the film comes straight from the pages of Yulia's diary. The world of Yulia's diary is that of Leningrad's bohemian young painters and poets, the second culture. Yulia dedicated her diary to a poet called Konstantin КУЗьМИНСКИЙ, who is the self-crowned king of the second culture. Because he has now left Russia, the real КУЗьМИНСКИЙ, not an actor, is free to appear in this film with his fellow exiles. Yulia's diary reached КУЗьМИНСКИЙ in Texas, but by then, Yulia herself was in prison camp 27211, Section 1.
Hi. It's me. Konstantin КУЗьМИНСКИЙ has gone away. Hello, Konstantin. Since you've been gone, when I first thought of writing my diary for an exile, I knew I would start with these words. Since you've been gone. Since you've been gone, Papa and I have finally got round to developing the photographs of your departure. As I look at the pictures for the first time, I say to myself, for the 1000th time, it was beautiful. Since you've been gone. We saw you and them in the airport. We watched you from the balcony. A glass wall separated us, and you were already far away. I was squealing with joy. I felt like a bird which is being set free. Then, suddenly I thought, what if it's forever? You left your room in a terrible mess, Konstantin. So we tidied up, we washed the windows, swept the corners and cleaned the ceiling you had smoked up with your cigarettes. Some really nice Beatle music was drifting through the window. I was lonely, so I started to dance. In your empty house, I cannot find you anywhere. In your room, there is less of you with every breath. In your house so empty, in your house so empty, in your house so empty. It's so easy to dance. That's all for now. Here is a kiss on the nose for you, my crazy overseas sunshine. And how does Kuzьминский like America?
Hi, Betty. Julia. Here I am in Texas. All of us are here. A piece of Leningrad in the heart of Texas. Our country is a land of glee. Yulya, за мной. My wife preparing barbecue Siberian style. And me, Kuzьминский, the Dostoevsky cowboy. Я другой такой страны не знаю. Here we are, Yulia, the whole crowd of Russians, and here is Emma, the fifth Mrs. Kuzьминskiy, poor Russian Cinderella, serving tea to all those sons of the guns. Here is Goom, here is Ilya Levin, who brought me your diaries, drinking Russian tea in your honor, honey.
Красив, наверное, в форме-то. I was lucky in being able to smuggle Yulia's diaries out to the West. You know, Yulia starts her diary by describing Kuzьminskiy's departure. And, as you know, it is difficult for many of us to imagine a Petersburg without Kuzьminskiy. Well, in Russia generally, poets enjoy a very special status and prestige. And Kuzьminskiy, you know, was a poet par excellence, you know, in Russian context. And Yulia, well, you might safely say Yulia adored him.
A happy first non-Russian winter to you, KKK. You great, big, smelly, gloomy, hairy thing. You and your collection of poems are our ambassador in the West. I would rather have 50 copies of a poem published here in the Soviet Union than 50,000 overseas. But we may be forced to rely on you over there to preserve our names and our verses.
Look, during the period 1933, 1957, that period, I guess no poets appeared. They had no chance to appear. They were executed before they started to write their first line. Since 1953, there appeared at least 3 generations of poets. I collected about 150 names. Those poets were not published at all, though they tried to. They do not glorify their communistic ideology. They don't follow their political propaganda. They just write about good things, about booze and women, about flowering bushes, and about floating clouds, wherever. Well, how can it help to construct communism? It cannot. So they're not published. They're not promoted. In every poem of my friends for the past 5, 10 years, the sadness, the grief, the bitterness is increasing because it's unbearable there. Unbearable. And who else, who better can feel it than a poet? You understand me? Who better?
Now, here is a very little poem for you, Kostya. After you have seen him and done with crying, then be good enough to remind him of me. Tell him I said to say hello, and something else I asked you to say. I may be in exile here in Russia, but what would I be over there?
So, there are only 2 kinds of arts in Soviet Union, official and unofficial. Whenever I lecture about official and unofficial poetry, I just give the samples of official and unofficial visual art, because it's just the same. Official is well paid, but has to deal with political slogans, red banners, images of the great leader, Vladimir Lenin. You have to paint this kind of stuff, like the great crowds glorifying communism. Official, happy Soviet family. This is an optimistic painting, Henry Kissinger style. Appreciated. Optimistic Soviet collective farm celebrating the great harvest. That's why now we are buying rye and wheat from you, Americans. This kind of stuff is highly appreciated. And the style of Stalinist paintings did not disappear at all. It is continued till now. Listen to this poet.
Не выжмешь ничего, то ли как младенчика заспал, то ли потому, что никого. Разве ты, моя плетисточка, сумей, пальчиком по дырочкам станцуй, что-нибудь такое понежней, и пожалуйте, особенно к концу, кроме музыки мне нечего уметь. Хоть и простенькая мелодия моя, но умел ее я выводить, слез не пряча и глаз голову не тая, брал меня Господь и подносил к губам, в раны мои вкладывал персты и наигрывал: я с вас дам, я с вас дам. Эту музыку спорьте, эту музыку спорьте, листа.
He was glorifying poetry and the Lord, and it's illegal. What kind of poetry the most powerful poet will say? It is the prayer of Петр Бранд.
Помолись за меня, помолись за меня, помолись, помолись, помолись за меня, помолись за меня, помолись за меня, помолись, помолись, помолись. Апрель, блуд, колокольная высь, и кони пущены в рысь. Помолись за меня, помолись за меня, помолись, помолись, помолись. Знаком тебе топот этих копыт, знаком ли походка коня? Помолись за меня, помолись за меня, помолись, помолись за меня. Мой первый грех в том, что я рожден и рожден.
All of them are prohibited in Soviet Union, since they do not want to prostitute themselves, since they don't want to sell their beautiful souls to the state, to glorify ideas of Lenin, Marx, and Stalin.
Помолись, да родится молитва в огне, да коснется молитва небес.
He says, oh, pray for me. I pray for them.
Let's raise the quality of police informers.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
You just never know, and Yulia did not, who of her friends, or so-called friends, might inform on her to the KGB. It might be a brother, it might be a lover, and you do not know. Just do not
say that, but you really should be more careful. There have been some pretty suspicious people hanging around you lately.
Like who? Wait a minute. Turn up the thing. And you take care of the telephone.
Опасаюсь контрразведки, избегая жизни светской, под английским псевдонимом мистер Джон.
We all knew that Yulia's apartment was bugged by the KGB. We had to resort to various protective means, as for instance, not talking, but writing on the magic slates.
And that's how we live, Kostеньka. That's how we live here, darling.
The whole purpose of the second culture movement its reason of existence, was to live and create as if the KGB, as if the Soviet repressive apparatus simply did not exist.
October 14th. Today I will write to you about our literary affairs. We are putting together a collection of poetry. We are calling it Lepta. This, of course, gives my co-editors, Piotr, Gena, and Victor, a chance to be difficult. As long as they keep on writing their beautiful verses, my motherly instinct makes me forgive them their pettiness and only scold them sometimes. What about rain? What about rain? Is he a poet or a scribbler?
He is a windbag.
He's a dilettante. He's a graphomaniac.
How about Schneiderman? I suppose you don't understand him either.
No, I don't, Julia.
I can. Nobody can.
I am going to fight for the right of Schneiderman to take part in Lepta, and I will stand up for Hapkin, even if he is an idiot.
You call a Hapkin a writer?
No, she calls him an idiot.
You're just a bunch of Philistines, and you behave as an underground version of the Union of Soviet Writers. October 20th. Greetings, Kostinka. From Yulia the bird. I'm tired. From 12 to 7, I am at my stupid job. Then I have to stand in line for 2 hours to do the shopping. Oh, good evening.
Oh, Yulia.
A woman without children or a home is not a woman, but you cannot have a family and do creative work.
Julia, listen.
You go in the kitchen and make your tea. Just a moment, okay? When I get home, there are people waiting for me with work or talk about our anthology Lepta.
Yulia, I brought the poems that you wanted for Lepta, but Gar says these are his only copies, so if you could type them up straight away, I can get them back to him.
Just a moment, just a moment. I must do this thing first.
So Julia took all this burden on her small shoulders and carried it. And she had most of the troubles. The men were hiding behind her narrow back. But finally, it was made by all of us a big book, 32 poets, just a good pile. Julia was typing as hell.
Well, there's one thing that you can say about Yulia, that she lived by poetry. She was completely in it, in reciting, in organizing, in compiling. It was not her second nature. It was her first and only nature.
After midnight, finishing typing, Yulia has to hide the Lepta manuscript in the secret place. Who knows when the secret police come? Just in case.
Yes, Kostya. It really is war, with spies and everything. Just like in the movies. October 23rd. This evening we held a poetry recital. You should have seen the people. There were poets hanging from the chandelier, poets on the table and under the table, and poetesses all over the sofa. Hello, everyone. As you all know, we're here to celebrate the completion of our anthology Lepta. The 32 poets we have chosen are the cream of Petersburg poetry. But there is another reason why Lepta is so special. We plan to take it to the Union of Soviet Writers and to the State Publishing House to demand that they publish it. And now, Peter, please, would you like to start the recital?
So, we run up the staircase of Nevsky Prospect, having stretched the sails of our clothes, running for everyone, hoping to find something to share like brothers among us, hoping to split it into half and half, a vision of heavenly freedom. In the heat of our desperate pursuit,
The whole purpose of submitting it to the publishing house was to confront the Soviet literary establishment with the existence of a whole generation of poets, highly professional poets, whose poetry, nevertheless, was not published in the Soviet Union.
We had no other choice. We had to do it finally. Because, you see, it is impossible to stay underground, to hide your manuscripts in your table and share it only with the closest friends. You want an audience, and it's the right, I guess, the human right of every poet all around the world. That was, Julia was defending, human right of a poet, artistic right of a poet to share his writings with the audience.
October 26th. Maya Borisova is the one who will review Lepta. I had a good talk with her.
Maya Borisova was one of us in the 50s, and she's an honest poet. But on the other hand, Lepta doesn't resemble the stuff they used to publish in the Soviet publishing houses. Doesn't resemble that kind of poetry.
The memory of the eternally young soldiers fallen at the fronts of the great patriotic war, Requiem. Eternal glory to heroes. Eternal glory, eternal glory, eternal glory to heroes. Glory to heroes, glory.
All of them, nearly 99% in the Union of Writers, are behaving the same way. They depend on the system, and the system depends on them back to glorify the system.
I still repeat this. Glory eternal to heroes.
They depend because they are being paid. The system depends because they are glorifying the system. That's quite easy.
What next?
The next item on the agenda is a review by Comrade Borisova of the somewhat controversial anthology Lepta.
Comrade Borisova.
Thank you, Comrade Chairman. Well, we've all been hearing a lot of stories and rumors about the book Lepta. I've had the chance to get to know it well, and this is what I think. All the poets in this collection have the right to be published. It's true that their poetry is quite different from the general trend of today's official poetry. However, it is still well within the main tradition of Russian verse. And there can be no doubt whatsoever about the skill of these young poets. Finally, I'd like to say that it is entirely our fault. That is the fault of the Writers' Union, that a whole generation of young writers exists outside the Union, and that this generation is forced to create for itself an independent literary medium of its own. Thank you, comrades. That's all. I'm finished.
She opened the book and she read it and said, "People, but that's poetry." They said to her, the others, "Shut up." We didn't need any kind of such review. We didn't need that you will promote that kind of poetry. So they turned the book to other reviewer.
October 27th. I came to the publishing house to ask Kachurin about Lepta and the review. He is a cockroach. So, what's going on?
That I can't tell you.
Why not? Because the review is a favorable one?
What makes you think so?
The review was written by Maya Borisova, And she's making no secret of it. So why are you?
I see. Yes, she wrote a favorable review, but we had a lot of trouble getting a second review.
Who is our second reviewer?
That I can't tell you.
When will the second review be ready?
I can't say. What's the hurry? If it does get printed, it won't be out till 1980.
1980? Yesterday never happened. All that's left is a vicious hangover. Only a dry law can save Russian letters.
How about this?
There is still no news of Lepta, but Victor has been making wicked plans to announce our existence.
So, what we must do? Everyone tattoos their poems all over themselves and parades around the street in the nude.
Come on, be serious. But we must do something.
Haven't you heard about our letter to the Department of State Culture?
No.
Oh, I got a copy on me. There. Read it.
Listen to this. In accordance with the existing rules regulating public gatherings, a group of Leningrad writers and artists intends to publicly commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Decembrist uprising.
Signed Filimov, Gorичев, Krivulin. Hand me a pen, please. Thank you.
I've got an idea for a slogan.
Oh, God.
No. Long live the Decembrists, the first Russian dissidents.
In 1825, what is known now as the December Square in Leningrad was the place where a group of young army officers and noblemen revolted against the Tsar. Their attempt failed. 5 of them were summarily executed, others were sentenced to long prison terms. The Soviet official history regards them as original revolutionaries. But at the same time, we felt a kind of spiritual kinship with them.
The eve of the uprising. At midday tomorrow, we will walk up to the statue of the Bronze Horseman, bare our heads, and read our verses. I wonder how the authorities will act 7 hours from now. Surely, they can't arrest us for honoring the Decembrists. It would be like publicly admitting they are no different from the Tsarist police. Finished?
Who is it? Police. Just a moment.
Citizen Okul?
Yes, I am.
Well, I didn't sleep in my curlers for nothing. 5 of them had come to get me. I use a lot of forethought in dressing. I put on plenty of warm things underneath. And on top, I wore a pair of democratic jeans and my fanciest lace blouse.
Sit there.
They led me into the guardroom, and I got out the book of Chinese poetry, and I became immersed therein. After some time, a man in street clothes appeared.
Let's have a little talk.
Do you mind introducing yourself first?
Inspector Bogart.
Nice to meet you.
You are Yulia Nikolaevna Voznесенская.
Absolutely right.
We received a complaint about you.
What kind of complaint?
A black marketeer is selling rags in the Passage department store. Your description matches hers.
Who says so?
Now let's agree on one thing. I ask the questions.
Oh, excuse me.
Fine. Where do you usually go at noon?
At 12 o'clock, I usually start on my job.
Yes, but where did you plan to be at 12 o'clock today?
Today is Sunday, I don't work, and the Passage is closed.
What are you planning to do today at 12 o'clock?
To sit here and do my best to help you.
What were you planning to do at 12 o'clock today?
Oh, today at 12 o'clock. I have to be at an important cultural event in the December Square.
Do go on, that's very interesting. What kind of a cultural event?
A memorial in honor of the Decembrists.
What is supposed to happen?
Oh, you know, nothing. Another boring poetic event.
You don't happen to be a poet, do you?
Yes, I do happen to.
I like poetry too.
You do?
Pushkin and...
Lermontov.
Lermontov and what's his name? Durany.
Byron.
Julia Nikolaevna, excuse me, you have talked so interestingly about your poetic effort that I want to go myself and see what it's going to be like.
Go ahead. I'm sure you will find it very interesting.
Have an apple.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to turn you over to the inspector in charge of this case.
But it's already 24 hours. I'm supposed to be on vacation.
Son! Get your man.
Hey, come on.
My new acquaintance and I had talked for about 3 hours. But I understood the game.
Let's go.
It was a game that could be lots of fun. So I decided to take a very active part in it.
Yulia Nikolaevna, why do you think you were brought here?
Why? They have explained everything to me. Because I am an alleged black marketer.
And you believe that?
Of course.
Yulia Nikolaevna, surely you realize by now that there is no swindler.
I don't believe it. How can you have swindling without a swindler?
There is no swindling going on.
So, what's going on around here?
You still don't have any idea?
No.
We are interested in the Decemberists.
You don't mean it. Then why are we fooling around since dawn?
I don't know why. Why don't you just tell me about it?
All right. What do you want to know?
Let's get it written down.
The last act of the comedy began. This whole idiotic arrest was nothing but a meaningless farce. But I thought to myself, oh, no, you don't. You won't get rid of me that easily.
Give me the names of the ones organizing this demonstration.
No.
All right. Never mind. Forget about the names. Here's a paper and a pencil. Write whatever you want. I just need to turn in a report. After all, I've been on vacation since 12 o'clock. I want to go home.
No. Give me more paper. I'm going to make it long and thorough. I will tell you everything about the Decemberists.
Well, Yulia was relaxing at the police station. Gum and Ilya Levin were on the Decemberist square.
Have an apple.
The square was completely encircled by the police and plainclothes people. And the streets in the vicinity were all filled, and I mean it, filled literally, with the police in the uniform and with soldiers.
It was our first time when we were face to face with army, with KGB, with police all around us. It's just 17 or 20 of us and few thousand of that, I don't know how to say, forces, you know,
Forces.
even with weapons.
It's only in Russia they react to poetry with the police force.
That day became, let's say, turning point of our movement.
Well, the situation was quite ominous. It was clear that the KGB will declare the open war on the second culture. Given the Soviet reality, the Writers' Union could never publish such a controversial collection as Lepta, the authors of which had attracted the anger of the KGB by their demonstration at the December Square. They had to find a reviewer who would denounce Lepta, and they found such a man, Pyotr Vykhotsev, who 20 years ago had attacked Pasternak for his novel Dr. Zhivago.
Lenin said that any kind of publicity is a kind of political weapon. And the book, which stays forever, oh no, they will never permit to do anything of this kind. So when we made that collection, giant collection of poetry, 32 authors, about 1,000 pages, and offered them to publish it, they said no.
April Fool's Day. Zhenya, Victor, and I came to see Kachurin for the final verdict on Lepta.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. Your book didn't make it. I have here a review by...
You know all about the review and your editorial decision.
Who told you about the decision of the editorial board?
GB? GB also told us what's in the review.
Who is GB?
KGB. Committee for State Security.
I never took your book to them.
You wouldn't have to, would you? You have Vykhotsev for that.
The editorial board and everyone who has read your book agrees that there's no point in printing it.
Where is the review Borisova wrote? It's not what she said.
The editorial board does not agree with Borisova's review. For that reason, we are giving you Vykhotsev's review only.
You know what, Comrade Kachurin? It's becoming more and more obvious who controls art in this country. Here we are, having talks with the Union of Writers, with the Department of Culture, with the State Publishing House, even though we all know who really makes the decisions. You know what? Why don't you open the Department of Literature and Art around the corner, in the KGB office?
You know, this is a funny kind of review.
It's got precious little to do with literature or literary criticism. I mean, he calls us ignoramuses and Jewish haters of all things Russian. Only 8 of 32 are Jewish. And anyway, what's being Jewish got to do with it?
Is it not typical? It's just the kind of tactics you would expect. It shows very well that the Leningrad Union of Writers has become a branch office of the KGB.
See, they're so connected. This way. They depend on each other.
They sent it, this anthology, to KGB. Okay? They did not even...
Next book.
They waited instructions, what they should do with that anthology. For them, it was not literature, it was not poetry, you know.
In other words, the publishing house familiarized the KGB with it. And as far as, you know, as far as the general, you know, relationship is concerned, you know, you could talk very long about it, but I'll just tell you one thing. The secretary of the Union of Writers, not just in Leningrad, but generally in Moscow, of the Central Committee of the Writers' Union, is Comrade Ilyin, the KGB general. It's a well-known fact and no one conceals it.
Она мне соленых грибков вынимает в горшке из-под она.
After Lepta was rejected, the tone of Julia's diary turned to be sad, bitter.
We live at a time when the state can just spit over its shoulders and wipe out all our plans and ideas and shatter our lives.
Ну а я не дышу, сам не рад, а ничего, кума.
There is only one way this can end. I know that, and I must be brave.
Ничего, кума, хороша. Я и сам ведь такой же, кума.
Давай сразу дальше про...
Ну давай за это выпьем.
Ой, за это надо.
The second part of Yulia's diary is in fact a story of the war the KGB waged on the second culture.
Koka, you know that I cannot describe everything in my diary. But now, after 5 searches, many of my secrets are no longer secret to the KGB.
The tactics used by the KGB against Yulia and her friends have been used in many other cases against other dissidents in the Soviet Union and might be described quite simply as routine procedure.
April 13th. I was made to sign a warning because of the December's rally. According to the criminal code, I could get 3 years. April 14th. Victor and Gena were arrested. Not an hour, not a day goes by in which our literature doesn't feel the loving attention of the Communist Party.
Where have you been?
Don't worry, we're all right.
They asked us a lot of questions about you, Yulia.
Oh.
Crazy news, Konstantin. The KGB called in Oleg. It's banishment. So, semi-humans are driving out the best people. The ones who care more for Russia than they care for themselves. The 26th of April.
They told me that I had to help them.
Our homosexual friend, you know who I mean, was taken down to KGB headquarters. They threatened him with prison or the nut house unless he became an informer.
No, what can I do?
It will be all right. Now, they have used master gas on our own Ilya Levin.
I was attacked by one of the more sophisticated weapons of the KGB. It was not the first case of the KGB using mustard gas against dissidents. This attack nearly cost me my right leg.
I'm writing this in green ink to cheer myself up, because there is nothing to be cheerful about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
State bandits have beaten up Piotr.
4 guys came from an unmarked Volga, just grabbed me, threw me down, and kicked me.
A black day. The KGB have killed Evgeny.
Yevgeny Rukhin had been one of Leningrad's leading dissident artists. And it was at this time, in May 1976, that someone deliberately started a fire in his studio. Yevgeny died in that fire. Many people in Leningrad were firmly convinced that it was the KGB that had a hand in his death.
I'm so angry. I'm so enraged. Maybe I will get this diary across to you at last, Konstantin. Lord, our whole world has started to spin.
Он сам напросился служить в конвой, он сам пожелал воевать. И ему с королевой крутить любовь, но просто нельзя никак. Он в нагрудном мешочке носил чеснок и деньги, и партбилет. Она королева, а ей плевать, хочет он или нет.
When the graffiti appeared, the reaction of the authorities is indeed difficult to describe. Indeed, it was a big disgrace to have even the KGB have a graffiti on it. The streets, and especially the Nevsky Avenue, were filled with uniformed police and soldiers. Well, the whole thing looked as if Leningrad was, in fact, besieged by the advancing enemy army.
The graffiti really enraged Comrade Romanov, the party boss of Leningrad, and held a special meeting to denounce the second culture.
In Western intelligence organs.
In a speech in September 1976, he denounced the second culture as subversives whose activity was guided by the Western intelligence centers.
In our own city, these elements have held unofficial exhibitions of paintings. And so-called poets have even had the gall to compile a book of verses and submit it to an official Soviet publishing house. Let me quote to you from one of these scribblers. Sometimes it is difficult for the poet to find the needed word. Well, comrades, If it is difficult for him to find the needed word, why does he call himself a poet? We have plenty of poets for whom it is no problem to find the needed word. Now these poets and painters have crowned their previous achievement by daubing anti-Soviet graffiti all over our city. But comrades, we have uncovered the gang, and soon we shall bring them to trial.
Look at me. Have you guessed why you were arrested?
Of course not.
What do you know about the graffiti?
What graffiti?
Don't play the fool. We know everything. All your friends are already here. Levin and Gorman, Lesnichenko and the others. All of them have already missed. Now it's your turn.
I have nothing.
Let me introduce myself. I am Major Anatoly Ivanovich Voloshenyuk, senior investigator of the...
How do you do?
What do you know about the graffiti?
Nothing.
Who was with you?
Case number 62. Went on like this from 10 o'clock.
What time?
I just composed a poem in my head. I have had to learn to write verses on the go, and now, during an interrogation. It's a very convenient habit.
But your friends have all confessed already. We even have the date and time that you scolded Natalia for not washing the dishes.
So what?
They told us all this themselves, see?
All right. I confess. I scolded Natalia about the dishes, and no one else was present. It only proves that your listening devices were in good working order. Bravo for the Soviet technology.
I am Barkov, Deputy Chief of KGB.
Hello.
Have you made your statement yet?
What statement?
I would advise you to cooperate with this inquiry.
This is no inquiry. This is prosecution.
You must understand that we're saying this to you out of humanitarian considerations. Because, yes, because you're a woman and a mother. And you already see that we know everything.
But if you know everything, why do you need my statement?
Anatoly Ivanovich, have you the file on the Kachachkov case?
Yes.
Have you heard about that?
I think I have.
Here, read this.
Over the entire course.
Alert!
Over the entire course of the investigation, Kazachkov impeded the development of the case. He would not admit his guilt. He refused to make a statement and confessed his crime only in the face of irrefutable evidence and the testimony of witnesses.
We often find that a criminal will do, oh, God knows what, but he confesses everything immediately. Another person will do something pretty minor, but he's stubborn, plays the hero. And as a result, he gets a long sentence.
You know, this is just bravada. You're not enough of a star. You're not famous enough.
I'm no star. I don't have time for such vanities.
Just think about it. You wanted to be a dissident star as well as a literary one.
Oh, I'm a literary star in the KGB? How flattering.
We'll give you star status. You admit to everything. Testify against yourself and all the other participants in your group. You go to your cell and think about it till tomorrow. You'll make statement tomorrow morning.
go to your cell, spend the night there, and then we'll see you start to talk.
The next morning, September 14th, was my birthday. I decided that the important thing was not to become demoralized. So I turned to face the window and began to do some exercises. Suddenly, I felt a rush of astonishing happiness and triumph. I froze in ecstasy, and I prayed. Oh, Lord, here I stand in the dark cell with a face lifted to you, to the light. Oh, Lord, thank you for the feeling of complete rightness. Happy birthday.
At her trial, Yulia was presented with the evidence against her that consisted of a few manuscripts that the KGB seized during their searches and which dealt with her poetic activity in the second culture. The evidence was rather flimsy, but that was not important, since the verdict was a foregone conclusion.
You have been found guilty.
There was never a single political trial in the Soviet Union where a defendant was not found guilty.
It is your right to address the court.
I would like to say this. Every poet has a right to contact his readers. And if it's impossible, it's not my fault. This is what an entire generation of unpublished poets has to live with in the Soviet Union. I and my friends will go on demanding our rights.
Silence.
Yulia was sentenced to 5 years of internal exile and later was transferred to a prison camp. Quite obviously, the goal now is to finish whatever may be considered the Leningrad second culture off by the Olympic Games, by the 1980.
The dissidents are not those who fight against the state. They are those against whom the state is fighting. So this way, only poets turn to be dissidents, just because of their existence. You see? Not because they have political programs, they want terrorism or throwing bombs or exploiting the Kremlin. They never think about the Kremlin. They never know about existence of Kremlin even. And that is the thing which disturbs the Kremlin.
Very soon after the trial, the government news agency Novosti delivered its own verdict on Yulia.
The woman known to the Western world as the poetess Yulia Voznесенская hasn't written a single line of poetry. No one has heard of this poetess without poems. Even the staff at the Union of Soviet Writers, which deals with all literary activity, has never heard of her. This unsavory individual has been married 3 times. She changed her apartment into a bordello for loafers, homosexuals, and rowdies. Her neighbors asked her to stop her nightly orgies, but she only intensified these festivities. The police had to step in, and the so-called poetess was sentenced to prison for disorderly conduct.
I do not know if I am guilty or innocent. I only know I cannot live by halves. And as a pebble sinks, it's best to seek the bottom straight away. It may not make much sense, Kostya, but it says what I mean.
Poet, a pebble. It doesn't fit. Poet is a pebble in the great construction of the Soviet state. Hungry, shaggy, with beards, with shining bright eyes, so I remember them. Hanging around, reciting poetry to each other, drinking coffee and booze, cheapest wine and vodka. But reciting and writing and writing and writing. Only writing and living and loving. None is published till now, no chance, not for them. So why to destroy? Reason is, they're free.
A few months after her release from prison camp, Yulia Вознесенская applied for permission to leave Russia for the West.